Hello, gorgeous seekers, and welcome to this sacred Aries full moon, moon magic. Not to, toot my own horn. It's just this Aries full moon is a sacred initiation. And this is astrology that is quite powerful, quite impactful. As you know, 2019's moons have been some of the most potent moons we've seen in a long time, and there's been a general trend for there to be a lot of impact and power in the conversations going on, the way the moons are aspecting different planets. So this full moon is no exception to that rule. And Aries energy, right? Aries, that first sign, the sign of renewal, rebirth, initiation, fire initiation, right? And so the Aries full moon always has a sense of burning away the old and coming up through the soil and being seen and vibrant and bright and taking a step of initiation into a new cycle. So the Aries full moon always has huge impact. It tends to be a fateful moon. A lot of powerful things tend to happen during this particular full moon. I can think of a few Aries full moons that have been very powerful for me personally. And as you can see, I'm working in the dark tonight. I'm working in the evening. I'm working in this richer space because I really think this moon has so much to do with coming up and out from underground, from the deep, dark, mysterious parts of ourselves, and moving forward in the light of understanding that we're taking with us gifts that we've been given. A big part of that, you just think about the context of when this moon is coming in. It's coming in just about 10 days after Pluto has gone direct, after a 5-month retrograde, and where we have pulled so much information up. And now this full moon is kind of asking us to utilize what shadow aspects, what obsession, what power dynamics, what release, what transformations we were going through during that time. And now that it's going direct, Pluto's direct, how do we want to take those gifts and move forward with them? Now, there's more to go. There's more going on with Pluto than just the fact that it went direct, because it's in direct conversation with this moon. But before we get there, let me just go back for a moment to the Aries-Libra axis, right? The individual, our ability to be our own self, and the relational, the ability to learn and dive deep and become more ourselves through relationship. And we need both of these, right? So both the Libra full moon and the Aries full moon and the new moons as well, they always have us thinking about this dialogue, right? Especially the full moons, of we can't have a meaningful relationship without bringing a full self, a full sense of self to the table, right? And vice versa. We can't do all of our deepest learning alone, isolated. We need relationship in order to see ourselves clearly. So whenever you have a full moon in Aries like this, you are having all of that lit up, right? And of course, Aries is going to ask us to take decisive action in and of ourselves, but we are in Libra season. And Libran energy also realizes that those actions we take affect others, and that there's a balancing act going on here. So right away, just the essentials. We have the sun at 20 degrees of Libra, and we have the moon at 20 degrees of Aries. And I didn't even cover the fact that this Aries full moon is happening on the night of October 13th into the 14th. It's exact on the west coast around 8:30. Pacific time in the US. So over the course of October 13th to the 14th, we are having this Aries full moon at its highest impact. So we have the sun and the moon in their opposition. Now there's a lot of planets at 20 degrees, 4 planets at 20 degrees, and they're all in direct conversation. And the poetry of that is just, sometimes you look at these charts for these events, and it's just so beautiful and poetic. And this is one of those moons that feels so poetic, because you remember how I was bringing up Pluto and it being direct, and there being this peace that comes with taking with us what we learned from that Pluto retrograde over those 5 months before. Now Pluto at 20 degrees of Capricorn is perfectly squaring the full moon in Aries. Wow. Pluto and Aries are they both have a destructive side. They are both tied to initiations based on destruction and even death. They have that side to them. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars has a destructive side, right? And Pluto is the god of the underworld, the god of transformation and obsession and power. These are very heavy-hitting energies, and when they're squaring like this, and we have the sensitive, emotive moon in Aries, the warrior, the self, the individual, the initiate, squaring off against the transformer, right? We're having a direct dialogue here with what it is you want to take with you. And it's also a moment of grace when it comes to loving the darker parts of ourselves, and rather than letting them rule our lives and cause sabotage and cause destruction, to kindly and nurturingly decide to bring them along on our journeys, even though they ping up and they hurt. And there are times when those parts of ourselves that is wanting control, wanting containers to put things in, wanting to understand things at a level that makes us feel safe. It's okay for those to come along with us. I think sometimes we have this idea on our healing journey, right? We all get into healing, and healing is beautiful. And we're always healing, we're always learning, we're always connecting, we're always weaving new patterns within ourselves. But we have this idea, I think, sometimes that there's going to be this day where the healing is done. And we have this perfect amount of healing where we can say yes to what it is that lights us on fire. And what this full moon is starting to do, and the square between the sun, or the moon, and Pluto is doing, and these very in cardinal signs and initiating signs in determined energies, right? Capricorn and Aries, we're getting into it, is that it's okay to not have every single freaked out part of yourself figured out before you say yes to the thing that's lighting you up. In fact, the only way we're going to be able to heal certain parts of ourselves, not all of them, but certain parts of ourselves that don't feel worthy or don't feel prepared or don't feel ready, is to go ahead and do the thing and show up to the plate and show those parts of ourselves that it's okay. And that is what that square is doing. So it's challenging. And as we know, full moons tend to illuminate tender points in ourselves, tender points in the process that maybe aren't the most comfortable. And that's okay. And that's actually really powerful. So that's what that square is doing. And like I said, it will be a culmination of what the Pluto retrograde was giving us for 5 months. It will also be an invitation to move forward. Whatever was worked through there is now time to move forward. And that's the other fun thing about this moon. While we have this challenging square with Pluto there perfectly between the sun and the moon, and all these cardinal signs, right? 3 cardinal signs there. We also have Jupiter, our friend, and Jupiter at home in Sagittarius at 20 degrees of Sagittarius, making this beautiful trine with the moon in Aries. And what a great combo, right? To have playful Jupiter at home in Sagittarius, feeling good, with that powerful, determined moon in Aries, right? Where it's like, I'm going to feel these emotions. I'm going to feel through what I want to move forward on, and I'm going to let myself. And Jupiter's over there like, yeah, it's a great idea. Now, like, that could turn into the astrology memes where it's like fire signs are always like, that's a great idea, let's do it. And it's always these crazy things, right? Yes, of course, that trine, that playfulness, Aries and Sag energy is very much like, just do it and think about the consequences later, could definitely be a feeling you have there. But the way you want to kind of take in that perfect trine, because that's Jupiter at 20 degrees, moon at 20 degrees, it's beautiful trine, is to remember optimism, right? Jupiter wants to expand things, wants to grow things, wants you to go to the next level with things. Aries is all, moon in Aries is going to be all about that. This can expand areas that have to do with relationship, have to do with the projects you're working on, have to do with your connectedness. And this is a really fun, playful trying to let yourself go to those places, even with that Pluto, even understanding that you have a Pluto part of yourself, right? That you have a part of yourself that maybe looks a little messy or looks a little scared or looks a little bit obsessive. We all have parts of ourselves that feel sensitive about this, about getting closer to people, about being seen, about being emotionally vulnerable, right? This isn't easy stuff, and I think that's the core here. So we have the Moon and Pluto square, we have the Jupiter and Moon trine, and the message there with those two very different aspects, right? They're such different conversations, yet they're happening perfectly at the same time, is that expansion and moving into things that light us up and are meant for us doesn't necessarily always mean comfort, and often it doesn't. Often it means that that is actually the crux of where we are going to take pieces of ourselves that have been in pain, that have been afraid, and we heal them. We show them it's okay. And this moon is kind of an invitational for that. So kind of think about it in terms of, what do you want to invite yourself into moving forward in this life? What is it that does scare you that maybe you keep thinking, I'll be ready for that later. I'll be ready for that down the line. I'll be ready to actually let this voice, this part of me be heard when I'm done healing this. When you can kind of think about it, okay, I have this piece of me, and that's okay, that needs structure, or that needs to know answers, or that feels afraid of not having structure or answers and so looks for those things. I have that piece of myself. And yes, it's come from different experiences in life, and that's okay. It doesn't preclude me from getting closer to somebody. It doesn't preclude me from doing that creative project or making that move or trying that new thing, right? It doesn't preclude me. In fact, it's a helpful aspect because it helps me be empathic, helps me be more present to others' pain. It helps me to also be a witness to my own self and know that it's okay, right? And in acknowledging that, and full moons are great acknowledgers, they're great illuminators, they help us see something. And acknowledging those pieces of ourselves that are there, we actually help ourselves be okay with it. Realizing that maybe you have a difficult time talking about what you need in a relationship, let's say. Maybe you have some little thing that, well, it seems little, right? It seems very practical or small that you have to ask for. And for some reason, it's very hard to express. And there's this part of you that thinks, no, I need to be healed, I need to be ready before I can bring this up. Just acknowledging that that's really hard for me to bring up just to yourself. Do you feel the release when you just acknowledge, ooh, that's kind of tricky to bring up? Not to wallow in it, not to repeat that story over and over again, just to be like, ooh, maybe you have this ideal version of yourself that doesn't have problems with any of that and is in denial about these parts that are in resistance. But then you realize that a lot of the resistance there is just you trying to deny that you are a little uncomfortable in being seen in that way and being vulnerable in that way and connecting that deeply. Because this moon, I tell you what, is about relationships. It is about how we relate and connect in deep, intimate relationships. I mean, full moons tend to bring up that theme because the moon wants to illuminate, the moon is about the interior. It's about the sacred relationships we have in our internal worlds, in our safe worlds, in the worlds where we go home and where we are not just out in performance mode. So no matter where the moon is, we're always going to have a theme of that, right? That emotive theme. So those are the big, direct full moon conversations. I'm going to pull 3 cards for us here today. I'm very curious to see what's coming up. Knight of Swords. Five of Pentacles. That card loves to come up. Four of Cups. Also loves to come up. But, Pluto Moon Square, nobody said that was going to be about where we just feel easy. It's about where we feel like we're not allowed. It's where we feel like we have to stuff down or hide. Pluto is also about like the taboo, the unspoken. So there's some clarity around points of pain, right? Knight of Swords is blunt, as we know, very blunt to the point, sometimes to a fault. But if you look at that Knight of Swords, that's going to be that clarity of message, that clarity of vision. And what does a blunt truth teller bring? And it doesn't have to be a person. This can just be something coming up in you. When you've just come through a Pluto retrograde and Pluto's directly aspecting the moon, wherever you feel like you have to wait to be ready, wherever you feel like you don't have the resources or you're not allowed or you have to hold yourself back. Now, instead of rushing over these energies and just saying, yeah, take a moment. Not to wallow in the Five of Pentacles and Four of Cups. Not to tell the victim story for yourself, and like spend a whole evening doing that, right? We don't need that. Just acknowledging it as a simple, cut and dry thing. Ooh, there's a part of me that doesn't feel worthy of that kind of pleasure, that kind of joy. Ooh, there's a part of me that feels really uncomfortable making that request or asking that person that question. Ooh, there's a part of me that feels as though if I don't hold a specific role in somebody's life, they will disappear and I don't want to be abandoned. It's okay to just acknowledge, oh, that's there. Okay, that's fine. This is even a great moon to write out a letter to that piece of yourself. I think I've given this advice a few times, but it's such a beautiful thing. The act of writing with your hand, or even typing it up, honestly, the act of putting words to what it is that conversation is very powerful. So to write, and this is something I got from Elizabeth Gilbert, who's amazing and beautiful, writing a letter to your fear. Your fear is trying to protect you from all these possible terrible outcomes. And writing a letter to those parts of yourself that maybe don't feel ready, don't feel worthy, or are scared of asking, and being kind and being nurturing and letting them know that they're heard and they're understood, but also we have to move forward. We have to go for this big, expansive, beautiful thing is so valuable. And I think sometimes in positivity culture that we have going on, there's this desire to just jump over that. Get over, skip this kind of energy is, just try and pretend it's not there and just constantly focus on the good. But this can be good. I think that's what this moon is trying to say. It's like, this doesn't have to be categorically this awful, shameful thing that we have to shove down in ourselves. In fact, this can be a beautiful point of healing and a beautiful point of reconnection with different parts of ourselves that really helps us be present and accept love at a deeper level. Because think about the people you love. You don't have an expectation that, oh gosh, I don't want to have to see that about you. Ugh. You're so happy when that person is willing to say, hey, yeah, I'm really struggling. Like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. I find it hard to find words for that. You're like, thank you for coming and bringing that to me. So obviously there are people that we care about that sometimes aren't as highly functional or struggling, and we're going through a more painful relational experience where maybe they aren't as supportive. But in healthy relationships and well-meaning, heart-centered relationships, of course people are going to be so glad that rather than you trying to pretend you're perfect or trying to pretend there's some perfect time when you're going to show fully up, that you show fully up. Now, like I always say with these transits, right, during the full moon, maybe don't worry about getting everything sorted out with everybody quite literally in the physical. We do our energetic work before we do anything here in the physical, and it's the most important part of the process, and it's the most powerful, potent part of the process. So you don't need to always immediately include people. During the full moon, you may be finding there's a lot of movement in those directions. There's a lot of desire for clarity and answers, but it's also just a beautiful time to sit with all those pieces of yourself that have felt challenged during that Pluto retrograde and to initiate yourself into that Aries, fiery, saying yes, making the agreement to say yes to that big, bold thing, that big, bold relationship, move, lifestyle, personality, shift that you have been concocting and brewing. This is a very magical moon. In fact, I am feeling so pumped about this moon that I am going to continue talking about it on my Patreon. I decided to do a little bit of an extra bonus conversation about the Aries full moon because there's another transit that I didn't get into in this video that's going on at this time. It's a Venus and Uranus opposition. And it's going on in the fixed signs of Scorpio and Taurus. So I'm going to talk about that opposition on my Patreon, and we're going to pull a few more cards. And I also have some affirmations for that opposition that will be occurring during this full moon and the days around this full moon. And we're going to just take a little bit of extra time. So if you haven't joined my little community over there, there's extras every single week. I write up the weekly astrology forecast to get a feel for the energies. I'm doing extras and bonuses like this conversation that I'm about to go over there. So it's like a really great place to get those little extras and those little boosts and to just have fun with me and be a part of my whole behind the scenes world. So please go join me over there if you're curious about what is going on with that opposition, because it's pretty powerful, and it's another one of those oppositions that lights up relationship and vulnerability in huge revolutionary ways. So come join me over there. And also, you guys, I'm wearing this amazing crown by Tiffany at PinkLune. She is one of my best friends in the world. I love her so much. She made this crown for me. She was really inspired to make this for me, but she is able to make a few more of these. Of course, all the stones will be a little different because, you know, each of these, this is smoky quartz and aura quartz and druzy, and, you know, she hand selects and forms all of this. These are really magical. So if you've been wanting to get your hand on a crown, this is your chance. So I will leave her Etsy shop below. She is just such a kind, loving, warm person, and when she makes her pieces, you feel that kindness and warmth. It's not just, you know, factory made stuff. This is very personal and very magical. And oh God, I just love wearing this crown. I wear it around my house just of a day. And it's just maybe one of the most magical things I've ever seen in my life, and I am so grateful for it. So go check her out. You can also find me on my website, SARAHTAROT.com, or on Instagram at SarahVerba. Please come and join me over there. I love seeing you guys in all of these different places. You can connect with me and find out how to work with me one-on-one. I will start to probably work on my 2020 calendar not too far in the future, so if you're interested, you can always email me. And I hope to see you over on Patreon because we're going to keep talking big, deep, juicy, good stuff. Have a beautiful full moon in Aries, my loves. I hope it just brings all of that clarity, all of that heart, juicy openness right to you. Sending you all my love.